bring in cultural expert, Professor Musa Xulu. Great timing to speak to you at 23 minutes after 2 o'clock, just as the King arrives there for this meeting with the Land Reform and Rural Development Minister, Mzwanele and Nyhontso. So the meeting is meant to be sort of around smoking a peace pipe. It's the minister coming to make peace with the King. Reports say the minister will come bearing cows as a gesture of ukushweleza or appeasement to the AmaZulu king. But what appeasement is there, Prof, in a context where Parliament's legal team found that the king had erred in his suspension of board members at the Ingonyama Trust?
Well, good afternoon, Michelle, and thank you very much for this opportunity. The minister has been on the right throughout when it comes to this issue. You must understand also that Ingonyama Trust Board is a state institution. It's governed by the 1994 amended in 1997 Act. And then, of course, after that, you have other legislations that are looking after the issues of land in South Africa. And the minister is appointed to look after that. Now, the Ingonyama Trust Land Act gives the authority to appoint the board to the minister. 4 of those members he can do after consultation, not in consultation, but after consultation with the king. And 4 of the others he can appoint after consultation with the premier and the chairperson of the House of Traditional Leaders. That was done and it was signed by everybody. So the board was appointed correctly by the minister. Now, only the minister really, in terms of the law, could dissolve the board. But also you don't just dissolve the board because you don't like certain individuals. There must be something substantive in governance that makes the board to be dysfunctional. And even then, you will have to give them warnings and ask them to motivate why they should not be dissolved and all of those things. And I think the reason the minister is going there today, he had wanted to meet with the king in December, but he was told that the king is undergoing some rituals of the first fruit ceremony. And then we remember last week that the portfolio committee from the National Parliament also went there, although they did not meet with the king, but they met with almost all the stakeholders in the province, trying to find out what is the actual bone of contention. And so when he goes there, I think the minister is going there more to explain things. He has to consult with His Majesty because Majesty is a trustee, and so he's going there for consultations. As for the cows, well, you know, the minister comes from the PAC, and they tend to be very much in love with keeping African traditions. It's a tradition that when you go to a king or somebody superior in Africa, within the African cultural arrangement of things, you always bring a gift. That's how you introduce yourself. He did that last year when he went in July. He carried 2 cows and there was no dispute. And possibly today he could also give another 1 or 2 cows. Well, that's in line with African cultures and traditions. It's a good thing that the two of them are meeting so that the king can understand also the limitations of working within a government legislated environment, because then you're not as free as you can be within a customary law situation where your whatever you say is final. In a government situation, guided by the constitution and guided by legislation, you are not as free to say anything and think that it will go. It will happen. It has always got to be looked at against legislation, the PFMA and all of those things.
I see. So it doesn't matter whether the king overstepped or not, is what you're saying, Prof. Xulu, not in your personal opinion, but what you're saying is sort of the traditional expectation around meetings of this nature. So you're saying in terms of cultural traditions, it doesn't matter that the king was in the wrong here insofar as the suspension of the board members were concerned, but the minister still has to come to this meeting hat in hand.
It's not a cap in hand. It's a meeting which he has to do. He first went there in July to introduce himself. And then, of course, he has to go now, like the portfolio committee did last week. I think it's more of a governance issue. I don't think that he has a cap in hand because he has not done anything wrong. The minister has been right, as I said earlier, in terms of this handling of the Ingonyama Trust board. And I don't think that the king expects the minister to come cap in hand. Amabuto, those are different people altogether. They are not in the governance structure, so they can have opinions about many things. But I don't think that the minister guided by the PFMA can then also have issues with having to, have Amabuto as his advisor.
Yeah. Do you think, Prof. Xulu, that there is a trust deficit now between the Ingonyama Trust and the board, that is, and King Misuzulu, kaZwelithini?
Well, there is a trust deficit. I think what should have happened was what late Prince Mangosuthu was advising the king, that he should appoint somebody with legal expertise and understanding of cultural affairs and customary land ownership to be his nominee, to be the chairperson of the trust, because the job itself is demanding. And when you have to go to Parliament. I hear that the king has never been there to present as a chairperson of the board the various reports that are needed. And then, of course, once you are there in front of those committees, you have to answer the questions because you are chairperson of a board of a government institution. The trust deficit, I don't think that it's because of, it does look like there are other people operating at the back. I heard there are lawyers, for example, that were not properly appointed in terms of the PFMA, making all sorts of demands and wanting to be paid. That would be corruption if they are paid, because everybody knows how service providers are appointed in government institutions. There also could be other issues of interest which are hidden, which are possibly, and I've said this many times, that the king seems to be having wrong advisors on many issues who have their own interests and want to capitalize on this transition from the late king to the new king. And the past 3 years has been characterized by a lot of unnecessary conflicts because, for example, the passing away of Prince Mangosuthu without reconciliation with the king also contributed to a lot of confusion in the management of Zulu cultural, traditional, and even religious affairs. I'm hoping that this meeting will be able to make the king understand the limitations he has in terms of his role there and take the best way forward, which could be to appoint somebody like the late king appointed Judge Jerome Gwanya from 2001 until he was fired in 2023. So that had created a lot of stability around Ingonyama Trust as a result.